Hey, how y'all doing today? Welcome to W.A.B Sports Talk with your host Wayne Buckingham and Tim Beret. How you doing, Mr. Tim Beret, today?
I'm doing great, Buck. It's kind of been bad weather here during the week, but it's sunny today. Of course, they say bad. That's relative to what it is in Texas. I know the people in Texas are having a tough time, but it's supposed to rain here tomorrow. And from a Clemson basketball standpoint, we're on a break again. We got a couple of COVID cases, not on the team, but within the staff. So we were supposed to play Notre Dame tonight, and that game is off, and the Pittsburgh game on Sunday is off. So
Right.
it's going to be about 12 days in between games for the Tigers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know we had a real bad storm down here in Tennessee too. We got a lot of ice, a lot of rain, a lot of ice. It's been very bad. Actually, I'm kind of snowed in into my condo apartment instead of being at the house. As you can see, my background is white uh, today and stuff. So, uh, can you hear me, Tim?
I got you.
All right. But look,
We're
man, we
good.
got we got a special guest on the show tonight, Tim. That is a good friend of mine. I know you know him very well. He's a Clemson alum, Hall of Famer. Uh, he's small in stature, but he's got a big old heart. He played back with one of the greatest big men in Clemson history, Mr. Horace Grant. No other than Grayson Marshall going to be part of the show today. Life after sports, man. Uh, I know you got a lot of great questions for him, Tim. Let me scan out, find him, bring him on the air with us.
That'd be great. I'm ready. Punch him up.
There he is. There we go.
Mr. Grayson, what's up, man? How you doing,
Hey,
brother?
good to see you. Absolutely fantastic. Great to be here. And as always, I enjoy any time I get to spend with most knowledgeable sports information director in the history of college sports, and that would be Tim Beret.
Well, thanks,
Yeah, my
Grayson.
boy.
And I think I scored all 862 of your assists in your celebrated Clemson career. And we'll let Buck take it over at the beginning. But I got all kind of questions I want to ask you about your career, and you're certainly one of the more successful Clemson Tigers post playing career. So we want to talk to you about that.
Awesome.
Well, Grayson, we glad to have you on the show, man. You know, you're my big brother, and kind of fell behind your footsteps. Both playing at Clemson and everything. Well, I'm glad to be a part of this show, man. And just I know a lot of people know about you. Got Clemson fans watching the show, but I usually start with our life after sports. Is just the Grayson. We like to know where are you from and how did you get started in basketball?
Born and raised in Washington, D.C. That's home. And I think the history of D.C. kind of lended the opportunity for me to be involved in sports in general, but definitely basketball. There's a long story history of great players that have come out of that Washington, D.C. area. And I think when you talk about D.C., when I was growing up, it was really the District of Columbia, then the very small outskirts of that area in Maryland, Virginia. But now the whole DMV area is kind of like one place. And so the legendary players are still coming out, so that whole group has kind of stretched. But I started playing everything growing up, but my first love was baseball, to be honest with you. That was my first
Okay.
love. I loved that more than anything. My grandfather played in the Negro Leagues, and he always told me that was my most natural sport. But I think I loved basketball because I was more involved in all the X's and O's. I think I was a coach way before I was ever a player in my head. And so I was totally fixated on how the game played and what was good and how to make it all work and how to be and make sure people were on the court playing the best that they could play. So all those things were a part of me even as a young man. So that's how I got started, CYO, and then I came over to St. John's in my high school and I started playing there in the seventh grade. So I went to an all boys military school from seventh grade to 12th grade. And then it was a really unfortunate it was really a beneficial set of circumstances how I got to Clemson because I was actually recruited by the previous coach before Coach Ellis. I was actually
Yeah.
Coach Ellis's first recruit. And Bill Foster was the coach. Clint Bryant saw me play against another gentleman who ended up going to NC State. I had a great
Right.
game against him that night. I came to Clemson on a visit the very next day, And as most people know that have gone to Clemson, once you come there, there's something in them hills. And I'm not the only one that says, there's a lot of people that say that. And I wanted to go there. So I verbally committed, come back to find out a few weeks later, they did not renew his contract. And he was now the current, or going to be the new coach at the University of Miami. And they were going to sit out for a year. So basketball wasn't going to be till 85, 86. Well, I had no desire to sit out. So my long-standing relationship was with the University of Richmond and Dick Tarrant. And so I just was going to go back there and play. And that was 90 miles from home. I felt like that was the place. And then Cliff Ellis came in and got the job. And that year he was at South Alabama. And that time they were in the Sun Belt Conference.
Right.
And my uncle, Jim Howell, first black referee to referee in the Final Four. And that year he was actually refereeing in the Sun Belt. So all the other 3 verbal commitments followed Coach Foster down to Miami. I was the only one left. And it was late in the period because of the way all this transpired. So I was the only one in the books. And so he found out that Jim Howell was my mother's brother and said, hey, I need to talk to your nephew. So my uncle called me, and he was a former All-American, and I knew his basketball acumen was high, his IQ was high. He said, Gray, you need to talk to him. I said, Uncle Jim, I'll talk to him, but I'm not going to Clemson. I've already been through this emotional roller coaster again. I mean, I'm not going through it again. And Coach Ellis came into my living room. Next thing I know, I was back at Clemson, and it's the best thing that I ever did in my life.
Okay. So your uncle was a big choice for you coming to Clemson. Did you have any other major universities that you was looking at before you made that choice?
Yeah, I had it down to Richmond, Old Dominion, Clemson, Nebraska, and Notre Dame. That's what I had it down to. Tim's alma mater.
You got any good Digger Phelps recruiting stories you can give me?
You know, it was more or less I met Digger at 5-star, and back then, Tim, when we were playing high school basketball, the college coaches used to be able to come to camp and work with you. So I met Digger at 5-star when I met Rick Pitino. So all the college coaches were at that time able to kind of befriend us. And it wasn't this closed period, open period and stuff. It was there. And I remember him being I was in a drill with him, and he just said, I really love the way you work hard. And I don't believe I ever would have been I would have been a backup guy. I think that's how he kind of saw me, as a filler kind of guy with a lot of heart and played hard. But I think growing up Roman Catholic, obviously, if you get an opportunity to have Notre Dame in the mix or potentially go to Notre Dame, I think every good Catholic boy at some level says, you know, I'll go to Notre Dame, or that would be the pinnacle of Catholicism to go play at Notre Dame. That was way before Mike Bray was there, though. Way before Mike Bray was there.
That's right. Yeah, you actually would have played with David Rivers. David Rivers came there your same year. Yeah, Jersey City, New Jersey. So yeah. So I did want to ask you about your recruiting, but you answered a lot of that. My gut reaction when you came to Clemson was, and having been with Coach Foster, but your game fit more with what Coach Ellis wanted to do probably than Coach Foster. Cliff's the sayings that we used to have is, our mission is transition, and nobody was better than that than you.
And, you know, I think that's why my uncle said what he said to me. He said, Gray, your game fits what he does. And I think that was the whole key, Tim.
Without a doubt, yeah. It took you 2 games to have a double-figure assist game. Your freshman year, you had 10 assists in your second year. That was a very talented team in 1984-85. It was. I vividly remember. You probably remember the game at Georgia Tech when Vincent Hamilton scored 29, and Georgia Tech was ranked 8th in the country, and everybody was just a little bit young except for Vinny. But that was a terrific team.
On the road at Georgia Tech that was my first nationally televised game. It was on ESPN, and Georgia Tech was loaded. Mark Price, Henry Dalrymple, Dwayne Farrell, John Sally, Yvonne Joseph, Scott Petway. They were a loaded team. And we went on the road, my first ACC game on the road, in what I would tell you is the second loudest gym I've ever played in. Wyoming was the loudest place I'd ever played in my entire life. and I'll be okay never to go back to Laramie, Wyoming ever again. But
I'm laughing because the cheerleaders and the mascots, they had guns at Wyoming.
they did.
They'd shoot that rifle off. That was a little scary for me.
I said, no, we need to get out of here. But yeah, Georgia Tech was a great experience, and to win your first ACC game was something I always remember. And I broke the ACC assist record at Georgia Tech my senior year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, also that year, I'm sure you remember beating North Carolina in Little John, and it was a little bit different in that it was a low scoring game. It was 52-50. In fact, when we beat North Carolina this year, it was the fewest points North Carolina had scored against Clemson since that game way back in 1985. And of course, you remember Chris Michael hit the game-winning shot, and fittingly, you threw him the pass.
I did. I remember it was, you'd have thought that game we won the national championship the way they stormed the court. It was an unbelievable feeling.
Yeah, it had been a long time since we had beaten North Carolina. I wanted to ask you kind of a general X's and O's question about the difference between the game today and the game when you played. You know, we had a game last week when, and I know you follow the Clemson program closely, Clyde Trapp had 11 assists. Right. And that was the most assists by a Clemson player under Brad Brownell. So that's 11 years. Now, you know, I'm looking at your career stats. You had one stretch, you had 7 out of 8 games in 1986-87 that you had at least double-digit assists. It seemed, but you know, the leaders in the ACC in assists might get 5 or 6 assists a game. It just doesn't seem like is it because there's there's not a set point guard who's kind of running the show? It's more distributed. What's the difference in the game between when you played and today?
I think, Tim, what you just said, I think is one of the main things. I think the kid coming out now has a feeling that he has to be a combo guard because a lot of 2-guard sets. But I also believe this. The game has gone to a very, very dribble-happy offense, and that's something that's completely different. There's a lot of dribble drive, a lot of dribble screen, a lot of handoff screen, which nullifies the assist in most of what's there. So when I was playing, there was a lot of ball movement. There was a lot of kick out, inside out. There was a lot of touches. So there were a lot of assists off of that extra pass. Golden State did that a lot when they were making their run and winning championships. That extra pass is where you got the assist. They don't get that now. The dribble drive, the penetration is what the game's about, and you do not get that in the new scheme of basketball in the world today.
Yeah, it's a bit, you know, because when you were, you know, if you look at the career assist leaders in the ACC, they're still all from the era when you played.
Correct.
I mean, nobody's come close to what you guys, Corciani and Bobby Hurley. Yeah, I mean, all those guys in that era has been a big difference. Now, talk a little bit about, you played in the first year of the 3-point shot, 86-87. Right. And there was a huge difference between the coaches, what they felt towards the 3-point shot. You know, University of Virginia only made 43-point shots the whole year, but Cliff embraced it. And I think that was one of the smarter moves we've had by a coach. I'm talking about the 86-87 season.
And I think, you know, Tim, that I think our roster was kind of set for that. We probably didn't realize it, but it was kind of set for that. Michael Tate started shooting the ball extremely well. We had Anthony Jenkins, Larry Middleton. We had guys that were accustomed to, and the secondary break that we ran allowed people to be positioned and spread out to where that shot was there. Take the fact that we had the best player in the conference in the low block. Everybody went to the paint. So there was a lot of space for uncontested threes. Horace was one of the best passers out of the pivot that I've ever played with, that I've ever seen. He was great at reversing the basketball out of the low block. So we got a lot of weak side jump shots because he was there. And that made it a big difference too. So I think that his skill set inside and our commitment to going inside, him getting doubled and us willing to make the extra pass, why take 2 when you can step 1 more foot out and take 3?
That's a great point. People look at the 86-87 team, which was the first year of the three-point shot. We shot 44.7% on threes, which to this day is still the highest three-point percentage in the history of the ACC. And people will think, oh, you had all these great shooters. You even had I think you shot 36% on threes that year. Michael Brown and others were over 40%. But a big reason for it was because of Horace. They had to double team him. He was so good in the post, and he was so good at passing it back out that was as big a. People forget how important the inside game can be to your 3-point percentage.
It's so critical to it, and again, because you don't see it nowadays, you don't realize how effective that is. The game is still effective inside out. They use the dribble to get there now. We use the pass to get there earlier, and there's so much more space for them to have to close out. And it's not even the direct pass. It's usually the pass after that, Tim. It's the one that you make after they close out that really gives you the open shot and the unselfish play that we had back in that day, which was infectious around the entire conference. When you look at every team that played outside of Virginia, you had to deal with that. You had to deal with the Rodney Monroes at NC State and the Vinny Del Negros. You had to deal with the Derek Sims at Virginia. You had to deal with the guys at North Carolina. They literally had good shooters. And at Dennis Scott at Georgia Tech, there were guys that you had to make sure you knew where they were, because if you doubled down, which we were supposed to do, those guys were out there ready to pick and pop, and it was that era of basketball.
Now, Buck, don't take offense to this, but I'm telling you, the 86-87 team, they were 24-2 at one point. Can you imagine a Clemson basketball team was 24-2? They were a pretty damn good, team. Now, the 89-90 team, you got to say, is the most accomplished because it's the only team to win the ACC. Right. But that 86-87 team, the thing I remember, I talked before we went on the air how you used to throw a few passes off the backboard to Horace, who would catch him and dunk him. That team had as much fun as any team I can remember.
And Little John, I think that was the one time, Tim, I think we talked about this before. When I got to Clemson, Clemson was a football school. There's no two ways about it. But for the era that we were there, basketball competed for interest and attendance and everything. I mean, it was coming to watch Clemson basketball during that time was a fun thing to do. Little John was rocking, and we literally had an enthusiastic time, and it was enjoyable. It was entertaining, and that's what kind of Cliff brought. Our mission is transition, and that kind of was the signature to what we did. Let's get it and let's go, and that was just how we did. So it was fun, and I look at the 89-90 team, and they were a great team. But I really believe that if it was both teams together, I think 86-87 would have come out better. And that has nothing to do with that team. I just thought that we were a better team in our full cohesion, everything we can do. But those guys won it, so we have to acquiesce and allow them to say that they were the greatest team of all time because they won it. But I think it'd been fun.
The problem making the comparison there is that Eldon Campbell has to play for both teams.
Both teams. So does Dale. Dale
didn't come to 87. Yeah,
that's right.
Eldon come to your senior year.
Yeah, Eldon.
So, Buck, do we have to take a?
But you realize something though. But y'all set the trend.
We did,
because I always got this saying that you cannot be better. I said it during the football when they were talking about Danny Ford and Dabo. I said my thing is the ones ahead of you set the trend for the ones behind you. Y'all set the work ethic. Y'all had a great season to make a guy like Wayne Buckingham or Ricky Jones sign to come to Clemson to build from what y'all have established. So y'all was a part of that 89 and 90 team, to be honest with you, because if y'all didn't have that success, you wouldn't have had them great recruits coming in behind to fill your spot, to fill our spot, to fill those spots.
And Buck, I say this too, one of the greatest compliments that I ever had given to me was Sharon Wright. And Sharon Wright told us one day we were sitting around talking, he said, Grayson, I used to get so tired of hearing about you all. He said, because all Coach Ellis would tell us
He talked
was
about
the 86, 87 team. He said that team, he said, we got so tired of hearing about you guys because every time he would want us to go to another level or present to us what we weren't doing, he would always use you guys. So we felt like we knew every last thing about your team because that's what we heard. So thank you for that, and I appreciate that. But when Sharon said that, I think that was one of the greatest compliments that I think a team could ever be paid from the kids that fall behind them.
right.
Grayson, what was it like going to practice every day with Horace Grant and Eldon Campbell on the same team, literally playing the same position?
You know, it was to see the young Eldon learning from Horace, to see them as almost two different guys, but to look at where Eldon was going to go because of Horace. You know what, Tim? I think that year was special, but I think the next year for me as a senior with all the young guys, watching Dale and Eldon begin to grow into who they were. When we beat Duke at home, the second to last game of the season, when Duke was ranked and we really weren't supposed to be anywhere that year, and we beat them at home. And I remember those guys coming of age in that game. Dale had a heck of a game as a freshman, and Eldon just played his tail off the night. But that was an overachieving team. But I think that was more fun for me because it was the legacy torch at that point. It was passing it on to what those guys were going to do. And I think that was more fun for me.
We beat Duke and we beat Georgia Tech in double overtime.
We did, yeah.
The last two home games. Mm-hmm. And that really gave some momentum for the next season. I love to tell this story now. Dale Davis was a freshman, and you're right. He kind of came on at the end. He had 23 points and 17 rebounds in that game.
Yep.
And the Duke team bust to Clemson for that game. And Jill Mixon, who used to be one of my student assistants when you were in school, you probably remember Jill.
Yeah, I do.
She became a full-time assistant SID at Duke.
Right.
And so she was on that bus with Duke going back. And she told me that during the bus, Coach K came to the back of the bus and basically told them, none of you guys worked as hard as that freshman Dale Davis did, and really sung Dale Davis's praises to the Duke team. And I always, remember that game was really the coming of age for Dale Davis. I remember him just diving on the floor for rebounds, and he was unbelievable in that regard.
He was. I mean, when we played Georgia Tech that last game, Tim, and I was 2 rebounds away from a triple double.
Yeah. Yeah, you had 16, 12, and 8, I think.
No, it was 19, 11, and 8. It was 19, 11,
19, 11, and 8. You had another game where you had 16, 12, and 8.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah.
That was my last one. I remember that.
No, yeah, you've got a lot of assist records that are never going to be broken, I can tell you that.
Tim, I got a clip I want to try to play of Grayson, and hopefully it's going to hold up. I think we got a lot of snow here, ice on the line. So
you might have some snow in that video. It's 33 years old.
Exactly.
There we go. Go ahead.
Didn't play.
It didn't play.
Didn't play. We got a frame up.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, got a frame up to play.
Want to try it again?
Yeah. No, just let's. I do have a question for you, Grayson. Why my phone is rebooting? Man, when you came from DC down to Clemson, it's like I asked Eldon coming from California to Clemson. Clemson is the school. You know what I'm saying? I know you had some great teammates and great guys. How did you really feel about leaving the city life, coming to the country life, and what was the difference between you as when you did? I know basketball was fun, but just going to school there, classes, and interacting from coming from the city to the small town of Clemson.
Buck, I didn't look at it that way, and Tim Bray will tell you. I think one of the things that I embraced more than anything was the total college experience. I mean, I went to every darn soccer game. I went to women's volleyball games. I went to women's basketball games. I think I wanted to be a student. You know, I really took student athlete almost literally. My mother's a principal, my dad was a teacher, so I had no choice but to have education as a main focus. So, and unlike you guys, I fit in on campus. You guys walk into a room at 6'9", everybody sees y'all. I can walk into a room and just blend in. So I think that more for me, it was a fun thing for me just to be able to be a student. And so I didn't see it, I saw it as me coming to a school and just being a student. So I didn't see myself as a basketball player. So I didn't look at the city part of it. I think I just embraced this atmosphere and this ambiance that they call Clemson, and I was just a part of that, and I enjoyed that more than I did missing the city because I grew up in it. I didn't miss the buses, I didn't miss subways. There was a lot of things that Clemson offered that was a nice contrast to and a completely different world than I grew up in Washington D.C.
Now, let me
Right.
add something to what he just said about taking the entire Clemson experience in. There's a picture in Grayson's file of him at a baseball game. I think it was his senior year, and we were playing Florida State, I believe, and he brought a broom to the game because if we'd won that game on Sunday, we were going to sweep Florida State. And so I wish I had taken a picture and sent it to you, Buck, but there's a picture of Grayson at a baseball with other students carrying a broom. You remember that, Grayson?
Yeah, I do. Baseball was my first. You know, it's funny, Tim. I was somewhere about 10 years ago, and I had a hat, and it was probably it was an obscene hat, but my hat had a middle finger on top of the hat, and I would wear it to the baseball games. And I remember running into somebody. I think it's one of the bowl games, and they didn't talk to me about playing basketball. They talked to me about heckling at the baseball games, and they remembered. Yeah. And it was just, well, yeah, it wasn't basketball. I thought that's a great. I remember you with that hat and at the game. So that was for me. And again, like I said, baseball was always my first love, and we had great baseball teams when I was there.
We did,
so,
yeah.
We had baseball teams. Steve Bauckham and Chuck Baldwin and Ray Williams.
Bill Spires was a first round pick when you were there.
I mean, it was Randy Mazie. There was Mike Milchin, Bert Heffernan. I mean, there was a bunch of great players there. So it was fun to go watch those guys because they were good. Brian Barnes, a lefty from Roanoke Rapids. There was just a good baseball team. And because I love baseball, I kind of connected with that and just enjoyed being that. So I really didn't miss didn't miss the city so much, Buck, as I just embraced Clemson more. I just traded that whole energy in a different place.
Now, Grayson, you mentioned your parents. And now I got to tell you, you had all world parents, especially your mom. Your mom is one of the great moms I can remember as far as for being a basketball mom. Talk about that. You just quickly mentioned, they're both educated, but talk about how the positive impact they had on you, especially in your college years when you're just going away from home.
A lot of kids, Tim, didn't have both parents. A lot of kids didn't have the influence of their parents in their lives, and I did. My parents made it a point to be everywhere they could when I played. And the team got real close to my parents because my parents were always around, no matter where we played. We went over to Taipei, and we went over to Hawaii, and my parents were there. They found a way to get there. So having them in my life was something to just look forward to. It was a joy to see them embracing me playing college basketball and having a good time watching it.
Yeah, I think that was so important, and I think it was kind of important for you. You were the only freshman in that year. You were kind of the lone ranger, and I think that was having that good upbringing was important because that had to be a little bit tough to be the only one in your class when you started.
Well, I think it was. Well, no, I wasn't the only one in the class when I started. Harvey was a redshirt freshman.
Oh, that's right, Harvey Red. Yeah, that's right.
And then Robert Stone and Harlan Graham came in very late because Harlan was from Jordan. And they only stayed 1 year. I think the one thing about the program, Tim, is that from the time I got there to my senior year, 21 guys had come in and transferred and gone away. Wow. And when I was a senior, I was the only one standing.
You were the only. I guess that's what I was thinking. You were the only senior.
I was the only senior. So,
87.
Because Harlan Graham, Anthony Blackman, Harvey Grant were the freshmen, and Robert Stone we were the freshmen that year, and then Anthony Blackman subsequently transferred. Harlan transferred to Georgia State. Harvey went to Independent on Oklahoma, and then Robert Stone just left school. So I ended up being the only senior in my senior class. But when we started, there were a few more guys there, but they all transferred, so it's not likely you would have remembered them.
Right.
Gotcha.
So let me say this: with the clip, I had Timberlake. The clip I had was a game that Grayson had 21. I think it was 20 or 21 assists, but
20.
you had to go back and count them, and he ended up having 22. That was the clip I was going to play. But
okay, but I can tell that story if it doesn't
you
run.
Tell that
So
story, Mr. Timberlake?
I'll tell that story. So this is the first game of the 85-86 season against Maryland Eastern Shore.
Sure, yeah.
And so Grayson's playing the point, and Larry Middleton. Now this is before the 3-point shot, so
Right.
there's not real proper documentation on how many long shots he made. But Grayson did a great job of working the ball around the perimeter. Maryland Eastern Shore is playing his own, and Larry Middleton is knocking him down, but Grayson's also driving and dishing off. So Grayson has 20 assists, and we win the game. So the guy for the Anderson Independent the next day writes a column that he questioned his assist total. He was saying that we padded his assists. So, of course, that made me mad. And so I got with whoever the film person was, and I went back and sat through and did the game and recharted him. And so I wrote a letter to him and to the editor of the Anderson Independent. I said, you're right. We were wrong. He really had 22 assists. We gypped him out of 2. But what do you remember about that game? That must have been a fun game for you.
It was, Tim, and I left the game early too, but I didn't realize how many until the game was over, and I think I was in the locker room getting interviewed, and I think you came up to me as I was going to get interviewed, or they were coming into the locker room, and you said, Grayson, you had 20 assists. And I was like, wow.
And it was an ACC record. Might have been the national record at the time.
It was at the time. At the time, it was.
At the time.
I remember looking at the stat sheet, and I was kind of blown away by it. And then here's what happens, Tim. You go back through your mind, you think, dang it, I could have had that one, or dang it, I could have had that one. I keep going through that. Now, what's funny? I used to get bothered, Tim, because now they're allowing a dribble from the end recipient and have it still count as an assist.
Right.
So I'm thinking how many times, especially when Eldon and Dale were freshmen, how many times they took that one dribble and it just negated an assist. I'm thinking, man, if I could have got one dribble, I don't know how many I would have. I remember one time they did a ratio to assist to ball handling time. It was in Chapel Hill. I remember they did a story that if I had been at North Carolina with the amount of time that I had the ball in my hand and I directly resulted in a score for Clemson, I think my junior year I would have had almost 1,200 assists in my junior year based on how much influence I had on the end result. And I remember them doing that in an article one year. And I was like, wow, they're being in that system because there were so many assists tied to a North Carolina bucket. And based on the amount of assists that I was responsible for every Clemson bucket, they kind of prorated and projected that's what it would have been. I was like, wow, that would have been neat.
Yeah, the only thing that was a little different in North Carolina's system their offense went through a little bit. I mean, everything we did went through you.
Right.
But in North Carolina, it was kind of a little bit more multiple.
Correct. No doubt.
Multiple guys. So, but yeah, no, the 20 assist game, I'll always remember.
That was fun.
Remember that. Now, one other thing, remember, I wanted to ask you about is, we talked about the 86-87 season and everything was going along great. And then you sprained your ankle I think it was the first half at Duke. And we weren't the same. We were the same after that because you were hurt. We tried to move Michael Tate to the point. He was a 2 guard and hadn't played point all year. I know that was a disappointing situation.
We didn't win a game. We didn't win another game that year. Another game that year. And that was really frustrating because I really believed, Tim, that year we were one of the best 4 teams in the country, if not in the midst of playing for a national championship. I just felt like we were on all cylinders in so many ways, and losing to no, I believe losing the first round to Wake Forest in the ACC tournament is what changed it. Because if we'd have had what I believe would have been a better seeding, we had a decent seeding. We were 4 seed, but I
In the
think that
ACC tournament, we were 2.
we were 2. But I mean, the
We were the
NCAA
2 seed.
tournament,
Oh,
yeah,
NCAA tournament, we were 4. You're right.
we were 4 seed. So I think that if we would have won maybe a game or 2 in the ACC tournament, we would have been a higher seed in the NCAA tournament and might have gotten away with one more week, get healthy, and make a run. That's what
Yeah.
I felt, because we lost to Wake
Yeah.
Forest. Muggsy Bogues just had a field day with Michael
Muggsy
Tate.
you didn't play at all in the game, and Muggsy had 17 assists.
He
And
played great.
actually, we had a big lead, I think, in the first half, and then he let
We
a
did.
big he come back. He went just I also seeing you think of the other point guards you went against
Oh my God!
in that era were unbelievable.
Every night I was playing against one of the best in the country.
It
You
was-
had Spud Webb and Nate McMillan at NC State. You had Kenny Smith at North Carolina. You had Muggsy Bogues at Wake Forest. Mark Price at Georgia Tech.
Mark Price.
Johnny Dawkins and Tommy Amaker at Duke. You had John Johnson at Virginia. Let me think. Maryland had Keith Gatlin. I mean, every night I went out.
Every night you're playing a pro.
Exactly. Every night I was playing against the pro. Every single night. And I'm not talking about a 1-year pro. I'm talking about tenured pros. Some of the best in the game pros. And
absolutely.
Every night.
Well, Buck, you want to go into this? Is your segment, of course, is life after the game. You want to talk a little bit about what he's doing now?
Yeah, talk to Grayson about you had a wonderful career at university, going into your senior year. Let's talk about your decision making, and I know you had chances to go play at the next level, a pro level, have built on you. Let's go into what was your mindset when you graduated coming out of Clemson and choosing go to play overseas or play the NBA, compared to moving into what you got going on, what you going to decide to do after college basketball.
One of the things that and I'm honest about this and I'm clear about it. One of the things that really hurt me was not being able to coach at Clemson. My parents were educators, as I said before, and they were very, very adamant about what you do after sports. And I was constantly reminded that the career is only 2.5, 3 years, maybe 4. And I had resolved in my mind that playing pro basketball was for people who couldn't do anything else outside of sports. And that wasn't a degrading thing. That was how I framed it in my mind. So I had really no aspirations of playing after college. I just didn't. I wanted to go in and start my life. And I wanted to coach in my alma mater. And I remember going into Coach Ellis's office, and he told me that I needed to go somewhere else and learn somebody else's system. And that frustrated me in a big way. So I literally didn't touch a basketball for almost 12, 15 years after that. But I had my degree in 4 years. I wanted to, and again, I don't know why he said it. I don't care to understand, but it did frustrate me because my argument was I was the first recruit at Clemson. I stayed with you 4 years. I graduated in 4 years. I'm the all-time ACC career assist leader. I'm as familiar with this university and what goes on as anybody. I said, what better recruiting tool can you have? And it wasn't for me to decide, but it did frustrate me. It was probably one of the things in life that hurt me the most. But in the end, when I look back at it, I grew from it. I moved on into my life, and I was able to really begin to exercise some of the other giftings and talents that I had. So when you look back from a mature place, at the time, it was emotional. And the end, it was retrospect, and it just makes life feel that much more plausible now, because had I gone and done that, I might not be the person I am today.
Right. So as you stepped out, got away from basketball. You said 12 to 15 years. I guess you started working in your crafts and building. So here we got, like I said, what? Let's let the people know Grayson Marshall. What do Grayson Marshall got going on now and where are you at in your life now?
I had to find my way, Buck, because it was different than my parents' plan. I think every child, every parent that has a child, kind of formulates their kid's future in their mind, whether or not they want to or not. This is what they think. They look at their child and say, "This is what I want my child to be." And my parents were educators, so they wanted me in education. My sister graduated from Wharton, the #2 business school in the country, and she actually became a middle school teacher. And I was like, that wasn't what I wanted to do, which is one of the reasons I didn't move back to DC and stay long. And I moved elsewhere. I've always had an affinity for business. As a young kid, I used to watch soap operas, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I used to watch soap operas, and I watched it because I was enamored by business, even though I knew it wasn't real. The thought of waking up in the morning, dressing nice, going and running business, making things happen, it was more the point guard in me. And that's kind of how I related to it. It was a guy making a bunch of stuff happen for a lot of people. So that resonated with me.
Right.
But I had no parental guidance in that space. So I had to go really learn that on my own. I didn't have anybody to teach me. So
Right.
I subsequently made some poor decisions in pursuing that and found myself homeless at 28. And I wasn't pushing a cart on the street. I had just lost everything. And fortunately, because of relationships, I was able to sleep on a couch here, do some things there. But at that point, I started doing more reading. I started doing more personal reflection. I started looking at why transition was so challenging. If you were so successful in sports, why is it so hard to transition out of sports? And then I began to look at the statistics of athletes from every vertical in sports, how they struggle after sports. So I began to look and say, okay, what can I do? What can I begin to do to assist in this problem or assist in this challenge? So I really started focusing on mindset, looking at the different mindset that we have as athletes and how we tend not to transfer that same philosophy into life when in essence, you're more qualified to do some of the things entrepreneurially in life than anybody else. So I began to focus on building that and building people. So I got into business. I've been a successful entrepreneur, franchise owner. I've been very successful in the direct selling space, or community-based marketing, as I refer to it. And then the biggest thing that I've done lately is really taken on transitioning people into their second halves. So whether you're a corporate executive, you're in the military, or whether you're an athlete, there is a new mindset that you have to bring into the second half of your life. So written a book related to that, your second half, the answer after sports, and really talk about what it takes to really make that shift. So many guys have so much more potential outside of sports, but they relegate and try to find a space in sports because of what they know. It amazes me that we play athletics successfully with fear not even being a factor, but when we get outside of the sports arena, we're scared to death. We don't know how to engage. We don't know how to market. We don't know how to do those things because it's already been done for us. So what I'm able to do is take guys, take girls, whoever is in need of some direction, and say, here's how you reprogram what you already know to make it effectively work in the second half of your life. And it's been awesome seeing people totally transition. I work with Hollywood actors. I work with former pro athletes. I work with CEOs, everybody who just needs to. And again, this whole paralysis from fear exists in just about everybody at some point. And God has gifted me to be really good at pulling that out, challenging them in their own space, and walking them through until they don't need me. And that's the whole purpose for what I do now.
It sounds like the fact that you went through that process yourself has been a key to why you were able to be successful at it now.
No question. And the ability not to be swayed by it, not to have shame be a part of what I did. It's just who I am, and I don't mind saying it. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I've been able to bounce back and take the approach, Tim, to not look down my nose. I've been able to, and again, this is the point guard in me. How can I make you look better? How can I get you to where you want to go? And that to me is a natural DNA component of who I am. And it's just my heart. So my heart is for God. I was in ministry for 18 years. So I just have a heart for people. And in the world that we live in now, people are beat down. They're frustrated. They're just not as positive, enthusiastic, or energetic as they want to be. There's a lot of disparity and despondency in the world, and it frustrates a lot of people. But I want to make sure that they know who they are, what they have in them, and that it's not over. You're still here. It's not over, and you can make this happen.
Go ahead, Buck.
So Grayson, Grayson, let's talk about what you're doing. How can they get in contact with you? I will and the commercials, the stuff I have after this one, once we get off, hook it to the video. Let them know for yourself if they want to reach out. I know you got some shows on Facebook, you got other podcasts that you do. Let people know how to get in contact and how to come and join and hear you.
If they go to therealgm.live, the real in my initials, gm.live, everything I do is there. All my books are there. Links to my podcast are there. I've got over 500 episodes of my podcast, my YouTube channel. Big Skinny is putting together a new one for me called Change Your Perspective that we're going to start 1st of March. That'll be on every platform, Spotify, iTunes, Apple, everywhere. And that's going to be a daily podcast, really dealing with how to change your perspective. I really try to take everyday thoughts, everyday things, and bring them to a place of contemplation for you. I want people to be able to think. We're living in a world right now that doesn't seem to think for themselves. They're very influenced by media and the media narrative, and they really develop an emotional attachment to something that really doesn't oftentimes make feasible sense, but they do it just because. And at the end of the day, I want people to evaluate what you're doing. As an athlete, we had to evaluate what we're doing. We had a film that would reveal to us what we lied to ourselves about. So there's an accountability level that I believe that there are people in the world that don't want. They'd rather have someone else be accountable for them. And the only way they're going to have true success in life is if they personally embrace their own accountability. That's what it comes down to. And when I deal with athletes, I let them know, say, here's the deal. Mark Brunell is actually one of the guys I worked with here. Mark just became the quarterback coach of Detroit. And Mark lost $50 million. And Mark and I were talking one day, and we were having a conversation. I shared a lot of stuff that I share with my clients. And he said, Grayson, I wish I'd have met you 15 years ago. He said, because I wouldn't have done some of the things I did based on what you're telling me. And I said to him, I said, Mark, let me ask you a question. I said, you played 19 years in the NFL. I said, you are the standard for quarterback here in Jacksonville, Florida. He won't be now because TL16 will be here. So there is a new standard now. He was the standard. He was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, heir apparent to Brett Favre. He went to the University of Washington. He's a decorated, successful sports guy. He was a dual threat quarterback when it really wasn't vogue. Mark could really run. And I said, but you lost $50 million. I said, Mark, when you were playing football, how long would you have played if every time you fumbled, threw an interception, or didn't do something on the field right, you came to the sideline and had an excuse for the head coach? He said, well, Grayson, I wouldn't have played. I said, then why do you make excuses now? See, we never did it when we were doing the things that we did, but now all of a sudden we have every reason for not being successful. We have every excuse. It never would have worked as an athlete. Buck, you know this. You can't have an excuse when the coach grabs your jersey. It's yes, sir, sit down and get ready for your opportunity back. You start flapping your gums, you're going to find yourself sitting there a whole lot longer. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that we would never do in sports that we actually do outside of sports. And my encouragement to athletes is let's really take what it is that that you innately, instinctively do, and let me show you how to use that in the second half of your life to an even greater effectiveness. You can eclipse everything that you did in your sports world, no matter when you stop playing, if you'll implement these things. But we think it's not sports, the same things won't work. And I'm here to show them that it does.
That's good, man. That's good. That's good. Grayson, I'm so proud of you, man. Like I say, you always, you've been there for me for so many times. Talking and being a big brother, a Clemson brother. I appreciate you so very much, man. And look up to all the stuff you do and everything. And I know Tim Brady feel the same way. Just being a part of Clemson family.
Well, I wanted to say something to both of you. If I had to pick the two guys who have most consistently come back for reunions, been consistently engaged in the Clemson program, it's you two guys, and certainly proud of that, and I'm proud of the how much pride you take in the program and want to be a part of it. And when we ever have reunions, you guys are the stuff we did with Sharon last summer. You two guys were right at the top, and just want you to know we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's a love of Clemson, Tim, that I don't think will ever go away. I just really appreciate it. It's fun now to see what the basketball team is doing. And to me, Brad's doing it with mirrors because I'm still trying to figure out who our go-to guy is. I'm still trying to figure out how they do what they do, but I'm encouraging them and cheering them on. And then obviously what Dabo has done with the football program. And people don't realize our soccer program is still amazing. Our women's basketball program is coming up. Our baseball team is still amazing. The girls softball team is, it's just the Clemson sports program is still iconically at the top of the charts. And we're still outside of football, readily not known in many other circles for the things that we've done. But we had one of the best soccer teams in the world when I.M. Ibrahim was there back in the 80s. They were just absolutely an amazing bunch of guys. Paul Retenis, Eric Eichmann, Bruce Murray. They were Bernard Gray. That was an awesome team. Jamie Roots, who's the GM down in Houston. I don't know why Jamie can't get it right with Deshaun. I got a problem with that. We should be able to sit together.
I don't know if you noticed, Grayson, but last week he resigned.
Oh, did he? Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I missed it.
He wasn't pleased with the direction of the franchise, so he decided to resign. Speaking of football, you're living in Jacksonville. I wanted to ask you about. I know some people in Jacksonville, and they say the buzz and excitement over Trevor going down there is pretty strong.
Look, when Gore ran for 6 yards and could have run for 7. And the Jaguars solidified when Frank Gore had a 7-yard carry and needed 6 and he got 7, and they ended up falling away and not allowing us to be number one. This city at that moment, it was T-Law jersey. They had so many images of T-Law 16 jersey that day. They were all over the internet. They're so excited about him coming, and I couldn't be more happy to have him here. And I really believe that, and I want to see this. I want to see more Clemson guys here. I look at what the Raiders have done with a bunch of our former players. I'd love to see, especially some of the wide receivers, I'd love to see follow him here and do some things, or maybe from other teams, maybe end up back over here. But I just think that kid, I remember when he played Bartram Trail here in high school. And I remember going to watch it, and I knew, he knew he was going to Clemson. And he was just a man among, we use that, we say that phraseology, Tim, a lot, a man among boys, but that kid was just different. He just was, and he's been that way ever since there. And I kind of wonder what Dabo is doing, because I'm not so sure DJ5, Big Cinco, might not be better in some of the facets than T-Law. T-Law, I'm looking at this kid, his arm. Trevor's got a great arm. This kid's arm is ridiculous. Trevor's big, this kid's bigger. And I don't know the speed difference, but we just came to be reloading. Now we get Justin Ross back. You add what we have, so you got Justin Ross and Williams, who both went to the same high school. This wide receiver core, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, could be, and this is hard to say, the best collective group of guys that we have and that he's had from a depth standpoint since we've been here. That's hard to even imagine. You know what I mean? And then Will Shipley from Charlotte is, I want to say he's a European version of, I want to say the right thing, we're politically correct on TV. I want to say a European version of Travis Etienne with the same number. What do we do? It's amazing to see. It's absolutely fun. It's absolutely fun.
Hey, Buck, Grayson, if this his current job doesn't work out, he could go back to being a sports information director at Clemson. He knows all those guys better than I do.
Hey,
I learned. I
yeah,
learned
he's
from the
throwing out
best.
all type of names. He
I
knows it,
learned from
baby.
the best.
He knows it.
I learned from the best. I do. I
Good stuff.
absolutely do love it.
Well, I guess we're getting
But
close
yeah,
to the wrap
you
up time. Did you want to show that? You got a video or something of him you wanted to show, Buck?
yeah, but I'm gonna do that after we sign off with Grayson because what it
Okay.
is, I
All
think
right.
to say it now. But I do want to say this, Grayson. I appreciate you being part of the show, man, and you're more than welcome to come back anytime, especially when this COVID thing is over. We'll be live this summer. Don't forget about this summer, June the 4th, 5th, and 6th. We got the alumni golf tournament up in Clemson. Everybody's
Got it on
coming
the
back
calendar.
this year. Reach out to help out some other people that's in need and everything. So don't forget to put that on your schedule. But we appreciate you on the show tonight and spending time with me and Tim talking Clemson basketball, Clemson football, Clemson baseball. We talked it all tonight. Yeah, Grayson, but just catching up with you, Grayson, and seeing what you got going on in the future, man, and where you came from, and seem like you're doing a great job out there, man. Keep up the good work and keep blessing
Thank you.
people, keep
Thank
helping
you.
people, brother.
I won't. I mean, like I said, I think it's who I am. Buck. Assist is something that just seems to fit me. It feels good. It's never felt wrong. It's always felt right. So you're doing a phenomenal job with bringing back athletes, and I think that keeping them in touch with the community and the fan base that loved them for so long, I think is refreshing. I get so many comments on Facebook from guys that say, Grayson, I still have your wristband. I remember getting your wristband when I was 4 years old. And then when I go back to Clemson, I see guys that were getting that. And then now they're with their children and they got a 7 or 8 year old child. And they said, this is the guy I was telling you about that I have his wristband. He would give me his wristband after every game. And you never know how much you touch somebody or how much you impact somebody or affect somebody. But when Tim said that earlier, 33 years ago, that was maybe the most depressing commentary that I've ever had to deal with, because it has been that long ago. And you really know how fleeting life is when I can sit back and reminisce over the 4 years I spent in Clemson, South Carolina, and realize that it was just like yesterday and was really 33 years ago.
Right.
That's crazy.
So we appreciate you.
Thank you for
Tim,
having
you
me.
got something you want to show Grayson?
Yep, there we go. I love that.
How's that for a picture?
Yes, I love that.
Great to see you, Grayson.
Thank you, Tim.
Hey.
Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys. You got it.
Take care.
All righty.
All right, Grayson, take care. Tim.
All right, Buck. We got another show tomorrow night, right?
Yep. We got a great show tomorrow night with one of Clemson greatest, Shandy Bryant, will be part of the show, and we got I guess I should go ahead and let you know we got special Mr. Coach Davis will be on coming to surprise her
Okay.
to be a part of. We got a good show lined up for tomorrow night. Make sure y'all tune back in to W.A.B Sports Talk with your host Big Buck and Tim Beret. We got great Clemson guys, a lot of other guys coming along and be a part of it. And I'm gonna try to play this commercial, Tim. And since I got better signal of you and Grayson.
Sounds good.
I still remember the night he had 20 assists against Maryland Eastern Shore in the 85-86 season. And I had a writer from the Anderson paper question all those assists that he had. So I went back and looked at the film to check one of my stats people had done. And when I called the guy back, I looked at the film, I looked at every single play, and he really had 20 assists in that game.
Number available. Number available.
Yeah, I don't. The signal's bad. Tim, give us a little update on what's going on at Clemson. around the horn with the sports there, Clem, before we sign off?
Sure. Well, as I said, or the beginning, the basketball team unfortunately is on a pause. 13-5 overall, and 7-5 in the ACC. We're tied for fifth with North Carolina. So we'll just have to see. But tonight's game with Notre Dame is postponed, and the Pittsburgh game this weekend is postponed. So the next game is scheduled now to be a week from tonight at Wake Forest. The women, I believe, are 10-8. They have a game tomorrow night at 7:00. The baseball team starts with a 3-game series against Cincinnati starting on Friday. The softball team is off to a 2-0 start, and they're supposed to play Virginia Tech coming up Thursday and Friday. Bad weather tomorrow, so I don't know if they're going to get their game in tomorrow. Larry Penley's golf team's off to a good start, finished second and third in their first 2 tournaments, and the women's golf team has a tournament coming up next weekend. So everything's going. Volleyball's going, track's going. We got everything going.
That's good. That's good. Well, appreciate that. We're gonna sign off here, Tim. We got like I said, we got a big show tomorrow. We got one of our great Shandy Bryant will be on the show tomorrow. We'll feature her tomorrow on the show, Life After Sports. Gonna catch up with her, see what she's got going on, where she's at today. She had a great career at Clemson and everything. So tune in tomorrow for Coach Buck and Tim Beret for the Sports Talk, W.A.B Sports Talk. After that, we'll see you then. Okay, y'all take care out there and be safe.
Sounds good.